ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm with them in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm with them and then we sit down steady. For the men on the place, I with the one Jamalski. We are the general. We sit up on the rhythm and over the mic incredible. I'm be right part of the rhythm, move with the rhythm, I sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel rock and follow me. You know you love her for your life. Make me jump up on the rhythm, make me ride it right. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we chop a mic, they call we give it a general. What they call me international. When me ride palm with them in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm with them and then we sit down steady. For the men on the place, I with the one Jamalski.
Yes. What is up, everybody? Joshua Casper back at you with Plugin Boutique. Time for another dev stream. Lots of familiar names in the chat tonight. Lots of new ones too. Love to see it. Laser M, how you doing? Let me know real quick if you can hear me. Let me know where you're coming and tuning in from. Obviously today we're going to be checking out SSL Fusion plugins with the product specialist Luke Aziz from Solid State Logic. It's going to be a good time. Serbia, Finland, Georgia, Pacific Northwest. I mean, that's... Are you hiding? Like, why so non-specific there? Scotland, Minnesota. It's great to know that we're getting the west coast of the U.S., though. This is quite early for there, isn't it? What time is it over there? What's up, Yes, Oklahoma. So just a couple of quick announcements before we jump in and I bring in my guests. Lots of live streams happening this November. If you missed last week, I said it like 50 times because we do have a lot planned. Unfortunately, it's about products that aren't named or public yet, so I can't tell you what they are. But just subscribe and hit the bell if you like these live streams because we've got a lot going on. Next week, I think we'll have 3 live streams. We're going to have a live stream on Wednesday and then 2 on Thursday. I mean, just the week after that, another 2 on Thursday. Lots going on. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell to check those out. Also, today, we're going to be doing some giveaways. A few people are going to win the Fusion bundle from SSL. That's 5 plugins. The 5 plugins we're going to be talking about this evening. So to be entered to win that, it's the same thing as we normally do here on the channel. That is, just be active in the chat, be positive force. You could be asking good questions or just asking any question. There are no bad questions, obviously. Answering questions you see that you have answers for, or just just being chill and cool. That's all we ask. And everybody will be entered to win, and we'll pick a few lucky people at the end of the stream at random. I think that's about it for announcements. So join me in welcoming Luke Aziz from SSL. Luke, how you doing this evening?
Hey. Yeah, good, thank you, man. How about yourself?
I cannot complain. I love doing these live streams. I love having guests like yourself on and learning from the best about the plugins in this beautiful world that we live in.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting to you about the plugins and answering lots of questions and hopefully giving away loads of plugins. So
loads of plugins.
Get those questions ready because I'm keen to answer.
Love that. So, Luke, why don't you start by letting people know a little bit about yourself and your role at SSL?
Yeah, my name is Luke Aziz and I'm the product specialist for Solid State Logic. There are a couple of us who work at SSL who are product specialists, and my speciality is the plugins, the analog consoles, and the music production hardware. So I've got lots of experience, obviously running the big desks, running like the Fusion, the Bus Plus, our sort of 90-inch rack format stuff, and then all of the plugins as well. So I'll help develop those, come up with ideas, test them, and then show them to you guys. So my day is pretty much talking gear, and it could be worse, couldn't it?
Absolutely. I love that. So I obviously just want to, well, not I, but we obviously just want to jump in and get right into the nitty gritty and let people hear these plugins in action. Can you give us just a quick sort of top level overview of what we can expect on the stream today?
Yeah, so we're talking about our Fusion range of plugins, and that is 5 different plugins derived from our Fusion hardware. So we're starting off with the vintage drive section. We've then got the high frequency compressor. We've got a stereo imager, a transformer, and there's one more whilst I remember what I'm looking at. Let's flick over. There we go. So all of our plugins and the Violet EQ, there's the one I missed. So these 5 plugins here are all one section of the Fusion hardware, but in plugin form we can put any of these elements individually anywhere in our mix. So what I'm going to do...
Let's flip over to your DAW, and we can jump right into the presentation. That's a lot of plugins.
These are all the ones you can win as well. But yes, we're going to be talking about these 5 plugins, and I've got them on my mix bus. And what we're going to do is have a listen to how these affect the mix, and then we're going to look at them individually, all together, and then some use cases that are outside of the mix bus and mastering process. So let's kick off. I've got my track here, and I'm going to take all these plugins off. So I want you to have a listen to this track, this banging house track from my good friend Levan, who's sent me the stems to mix. And we're going to have a listen, and then we're going to start playing with these plugins here. So take those off first. So here is the track. Bring it back as it stands without any plugins on the mix bus. Now what I'm going to do is bring in the vintage drive. So before we start playing with that, this is the first section of our Fusion sort of suite of plugins, and it is essentially a saturation tool. What we've got is our drive control, which is obviously the amount of drive that's going to be coming into the plugin, and then the density control, which is changing between primarily second order harmonics through to third order harmonics, but in a non-linear fashion, and these affect differently the way we drive. So what I'm going to do is play this track again, and I'm just going to cycle through some of these drive controls, and you can have a listen to the drastic changes that we can make. Now, I'm going to take the auto gain off because this plugin is going to add some gain and is going to change the level, but I'll then go back to the auto gain and show you the differences between it.
And Luke,
So
before you jump in,
Yeah.
just so everybody knows, is the plugin on the master bus or is it a?
Yeah, so what we've got here is it is my mix bus. It's not going out to the master only for routing purposes for this, but for what you're hearing, you're not hearing any other plugins. So I've got a limiter and my room correction in here for me. This side chain is just my vocal mic over, so that's not affecting it. There's no compression on the track post the plugins. It is just these 5 plugins here that are on my master bus, and this is all we're listening through. Okay?
Nice.
Right, so I'm going to just jump in from where the bass line drops. And I'll start playing with the drive. We've got input trims to drive in, and obviously sort of level match on the outputs, and these are our meters that obviously you'll see happening in a second. So, right, let's have a listen. As I start to drive up the level here, you'll see the LED colour here start to show the saturation. Now this is where the auto gain's coming in, so I'm going to bring that in now, and that's going to bring this level down. Bring that back a bit. So it gets really nasty really quick. That's not a lot of driving, we're already saturating completely. But as I change through this density, sort of roll out those second order harmonics and bring in the third order harmonics, and gives us more drive without clipping the master bus. Right, take this out. Control here, so we can start to bring a bit more balance and find a nice sweet spot, so we don't have to go to the extremes every time. Listen especially to the hello Pro Tools. Listen especially to the low mids as we come through, and I turn this off, and you'll feel that just become a little less dense in the low mids. And then as we bring that back, we can take that back down to the second order harmonics, drive a bit harder. Yeah, so loads of colour options with a vintage drive. We've got other controls as well. So obviously you saw me playing with the input and output trims just to balance that gain staging. Obviously as it's a full mix going through, it's coming in quite hot. So just having to play with the auto gain and output trims just to make sure that we're not sort of obviously clipping the mix bus. We've also got obviously our clip leads. Undo and redo, so if there's a setting that I liked and then I wanted to sort of go back to, I can cycle through my undo redos just to be able to move as far back as possible to remember that setting. And I've also got eco mode, which turns off some of the DSP in the background just to make the phase is less linear phase alignment. It just means there's less latency, so you could use this in a tracking situation, or if you need to bring down that latency. So yeah, so that's the first plugin. That's Vintage Drive. Is anyone?
Yeah, we got a couple questions.
Yeah, great.
Not Hardly is wondering if you can tell us briefly the differences or the key differences maybe between this vintage drive and the... Oh, I'm getting too many questions. I've lost it. The other one, the X-Sat.
Yeah, so they're working on a very similar principle. The difference here between the X-Saturator and the vintage drive is the density changes. So this is modeled after the hardware in the Fusion units in our racks, in our rack hardware, and the density changes is being able to variably control the third order and second order harmonics, but finding that middle ground and then playing against the drive. So as you saw, as I increased the density control, I was having to balance the amount of drive settings to find the right balance of saturation that was going on, whereas the X-Saturator is a little bit more linear in the way it's applying that saturation, whereas this is a lot more variable dependent on the settings that we've got across the drive and the density control, if that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I got another question here from Angeline King. Says they noticed that the hardware, the vintage drive, adds more noise with less drive. Is the plugin like that too?
There is an inherent noise element that comes through in the hardware, as you've obviously noticed. We don't have the same noise floor that we have in the vintage drive. So you're not going to get, there's no noise to generate, and it isn't generating a fake level of noise. There is an inherent volume change, which if there is residual noise within the mix chain, it will be boosted. But if you had no noise in your signal path, then there's not going to be any added noise, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. And then, so the VU meter there that says saturation,
yes,
is that the decibel of the noise or saturation being added, or is that...
It's the level of saturation being added to the signal. So it's not a decibel level, it is just a meter to show how much drive is being added via these two controls. So as you'd have seen, even with more drive but maybe more density on the third order harmonics, there'd have been less saturation than a lower drive and a minimum density. So it's just to give you a different indication of how much saturation is going on. On the hardware, we've only got one of these tri-coloured LEDs, so this is a more developed way of demonstrating the saturation that's going onto the signal.
Sure. We got a good question here from More Powa, spelled Powah. Great username. I love the usernames of people online. They're wondering if it's resizable, the UI.
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
So it is something we are working on across all of our plugins. Obviously, SSL make a lot of plugins, and getting through that process takes some time. It will happen eventually, but not quite yet.
All right. And final question, is the SSL Vintage Drive plugin based on a transistor, tape, or tube saturation?
Well, the idea is all of the above. So that's essentially what comes down to the density control. So when we're in the minimum, we're predominantly, we're boosting second order harmonics. As we move further up the density, this moves from the second order to a third order. And then at maximum, it is third order in harmonics, but not in a linear way. So depending on the drive control, the more you push, the less non-linear third order harmonics are added in the density controls at maximum. And this is basically mimicking the changes in saturation that's coming from like a tube or a transistor through to a tape or an op-amp sort of transistor sort of saturation that's coming in. It scales the whole gamut of all of that.
Gotcha. And last minute question about this plugin, and perhaps this can be a more broader topic to all the plugins we're going to talk about today. And I had asked you if this was on your master channel or your mix bus. And the question is essentially from Saeed Masanat. I believe that's how you pronounce. Apologies if it's incorrect. But can these be used on single channel audio as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is completely the idea, that we're taking a plugin that was essentially a color box in hardware that we've separated into the 5 different plugins we see here, that we can add these to anywhere in the mix. And what I'm going to do after we've gone through all of these plugins on my master bus, or my mix bus as it were in this case, I'm going to show you some other bits and pieces around my mix where I've got all of these on my drum bus and then some on my bass lines and other bits and pieces where these plugins really shine in an individual sort of way. They work great together. They were designed to work fluidly as a stack of plugins, but there are some moments where you might want to use the transformer just to add a little bit of shine and brightness to a vocal, or we might want to use the high frequency compressor over on the drum bus just to tame the sort of hi-hats and cymbals. So there are use cases for all of these in an individual context as well.
Nice one. All right, well, let's move on to the next one. That was all the questions for that. Nice.
Excellent.
Keep the questions coming in, just at Plugin Boutique, and we'll try to get those answered by Luke live on stream.
So
nice.
I'm gonna set this up. I'm gonna leave the vintage driver on because it's adding to the tonality of the track, and I've designed the remaining plugins to sort of work off the back end of the one before it. So we've got the Violet EQ now, right? So our Violet EQ, this is essentially a shelf EQ. The idea is we want to add a little bit of bump in the low end or some sweetness in the high end. We're using 2 very simple, straightforward sets of controls, but they sound amazing. And the idea is that they are really sort of well placed just to finish off a mix. We're not doing any heavy EQing here. We're just doing light touches. So this is the Violet EQ. Right. So we start off with our low band and our high band with 4 fixed points per EQ band. The low band being fixed between 30, 50, 70, and 90 hertz with a plus or minus 9 dB gain range. And then on the high end, I don't know what's going on with my pace. Let's leave that alone. On the high end, we've then got fixed shelves at 8K, 12K, 16K, and 20K, again with a plus or minus 9 dB gain range. We've got the obligatory input and output controls, just for balancing. Obviously, if I'm adding or removing gain with this, I can then balance out my mix just to make sure the levels are the same. And then we've also got a fat control, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. So let's have a listen to this mix. I'm just going to do 4 bars without the EQ, and I'm going to turn it on.
Hey,
and
Luke,
then I'll have a play with some stuff.
Before you do that, what's the in? I noticed that on the last plugin as well. What does that do?
That's a good call. I missed that one. So the in is a different way of bypassing the plugin. So it's got an automatable parameter within
I see.
Your DAW.
Nice. Like a non-click bypass or
engage.
something.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly. So yeah, right. Let's have a listen with this out, and I'll add it in after a few bars. Pay real close attention now to the kick drum when I instigate the fat button. So the fat button in this instance is actually giving us a nice little harmonic boost at the point of the low frequency shelf. So at 50 hertz here when I engage fat, we're just getting a little bit of boost at that end just to give a little bit of fatness back in. And this plays nicely against the high pass filter. So if I was to sort of cut the high pass quite sort of drastically at 40 and then boost at 50, we're getting that nice little residual bump to give us the missing low end that we've cut off, but we get the impression that it's still there while sort of not smacking against the limiter.
Love that.
Yeah.
I got a question for you.
And then, yeah, go.
I think, can we try to remove the compressor you have on your microphone? I think I might be getting some weirdness happening from it on the audio signal. Could that be happening, or am I tripping?
There was a gate for noise. There's no compression, but I have turned the mic up quite high. Am I still?
No, the audio.
Are we popping?
I don't know if I can hear the audio through your microphone too. I don't know.
You shouldn't. I've got no monitors on.
Oh, something's okay. Cool. I just wanted to make sure we're getting the right signal. All right. Keep cracking.
You shouldn't be hearing anything through me. Okay. Let me know if that's still the issue. I'll turn the preamp down a bit just to make sure I'm not. Okay. Right. So, yeah. Did we have any questions on the Violet EQ through or anything yet? Or I can do another audio pass and so we'll have another listen.
We got a few questions, but let's do that second audio pass, and people can send in any more questions about this plugin at Plugin Boutique with those, and we'll try to get them answered.
I'm just going to sort of, you'll see obviously me bypassing bits and pieces. I'm going to turn the fat control in and out, and then you'll, hit me with your questions.
Lots of compliments on the track. It's super groovy.
Excellent.
All right, some questions.
Wicked.
Do any of the Fusion family of plugins have some designer presets from any noticeable people?
Wow, let's have a look, shall we?
Yeah, let's do
it. So we've obviously got all the ones I've made myself, but we've got some very notable producer presets. So we've got the mighty Wes Clark's given us a nice couple of options here. So we can pick all of those. We've also got Sean Devine. So we can see there, and then Adrian Hall. So we've got these, and all of the Fusion plugins have got a producer preset pack with them, as well as a few elements, a few presets thrown in from the software team over at SSL. So there's a nice kick-starting place for you to jump off with some ideas and then sort of work from there. It is such a simple plugin to use that it's deceptively great sounding, even if I do say so myself. I've obviously boosted 5 dB at 8K. That could be really spitty and horrible in a different plugin, but it just breathes a bit of life into the track and gives it some air. The same with the low end. It's not horrible, just bass weight, but it's given a really lovely saturation to the low end, just highlighting what we're doing with a vintage drive and just driving that to the front of the mix.
Perhaps this is a good opportunity to explain why this, if I'm just getting into music production and I'm looking at the Ableton EQ and it's got 8 bands and it's got all this flexibility, like what makes this and other mastering plugins from SSL premium? Like, what is it about them that people should be keeping an eye out for, and why? I mean, it's it's world renowned for quality, both the hardware and the software version. So perhaps this is a good opportunity to speak on why that is and what people that are just getting into the space might keep an eye out for.
I think nowadays there is so many options and so many choices and so many avenues. It can actually be debilitating to have all the choice in the world. So having some key plugins that are designed very specifically to do something very well can streamline the musical process and sort of not block the creativity. For me to pull out an 8-band EQ, whether that be Lives or Pro Tools, and then start to sort of mess around with all those bands and work with it, even if I know what I'm doing with it, but if I can't reach the place that I want that music, that creative sort of ambition for that sound to sort of get there, I can start to get bogged down in the minutiae of trying to tweak this and fix that, where sometimes a broad stroke EQ, such as Violet EQ here, just gives me what I want really quickly. There's always a place for the surgical stuff. That's usually going to be in the mixing stage. I think if you have to start getting surgical, especially on the master here, there's probably other issues you need to go and fix. So I think when you get to this stage in the mix, especially towards the back end of it, having a few very niche but very powerful plugins are really going to help you finish that track and move on, instead of just getting bogged down in the process of trying to tweak every parameter. I don't know if that resonates with anyone else, but I mean, I mix a lot of records, and sometimes I just need to get the sound quickly to be able to move on. I don't need to be fighting a multi-million band EQs or so many compression settings that I can't even remember what the first one sounded like by the time I got to the last one. It's intuitive, and I'm assuming most people listening today and watching, they're doing this regularly. They're working with these tools, so they've got a workflow, and the SSL stuff just fits really nicely into that sort of process of just being able to go, cool, I'm going to throw up a Violet EQ. I just need a little bit of lift at 16K just to give that air back into that drum track or something along those lines. So that's the power for me, is the simplicity, but it's not simple on the back end. Like, I've got 6 controllers here, but I know that it's doing so much more in the background to make sure that those 6 controllers are doing exactly what I need them to do on the mix.
Nice. I think that makes perfect sense. If you're in the mastering stage and you're, like you said, you're doing like super precise 8-band EQing, then something's gone wrong further down the stream. Yeah.
And it is always the case. You've got to fix stuff. Obviously you're going to have clients send you material, or if you're working on your own, you want to get that sort of fixed. But most of the time, I think at this stage of the mix is just broad strokes, just to sweeten and balance. Especially in a mastering context where we're listening not maybe just to one mix, but we've got 4 tracks, 8 tracks for a long player or something along those lines. We need to find a balance between all of them. This is where the broad stroke stuff is really key to making that work.
Gotcha. Speaking of air, you just mentioned, Joe RN is wondering, what would be a good setting to get some quote-unquote air? Would it be like just boosting above 10K, or is there a sweet spot between 15 and 20K somewhere, or if you want to speak to that in any capacity?
I mean, in any capacity, it always comes down to what is there in the track, in the source material. If there's nothing at 10K to boost, you're not going to boost anything. You're just going to be adding inherent noise within the architecture of whatever plugin or hardware you're using. I think to get some clarity and a bit of life and air into a mix like this, I always tend to sort of navigate to around the 16 kilohertz, maybe 20, even though we can't hear, well, most people can't hear above 20 kilohertz. A lot of people can't hear above 16. But it's the harmonics that are created through that you can feel, and you can hear it. It does have a repercussion further down the frequency band. So me boosting 8K gives me a little bit of life into my hi-hats or my overheads, or maybe some of the top end of the synths. But me boosting 20K is going to start to bring those harmonics through that maybe aren't quite audible yet until I've boosted them, that might be coming from the vintage drive or another saturation I've got further down the chain in my mix. And that's the key, is obviously it's contextually based on what you're feeding it. But it's just try it. It's just trying loads of different things and not being scared to do stuff that you think might be wrong. I think if you were to tell me, I'm going to add 9 dB at 8K, I'd probably hesitate or think, oh, maybe that's not right. But if it sounds right, it's good. If it sounds good, it is good. As long as you're not clipping on the output, I think there's no harm in trying stuff out. And I think be brave.
Be brave.
You can't hurt anything.
Nice.
You can't damage anything. Yeah.
Chat, I'm going to try something live on stream that I probably shouldn't be doing, but people are asking me to make the UI a little bit bigger. I know you're on a massive 4K monitor, and the UI is a little bit small here on the screen, so I'm going to try to resize on my end, and we're going to see what it looks like.
Cool. Let me know, because I can always make it a bit bigger on my side as well.
Let me see if I hold. Oh yeah. Chat, let me know if that works. I mean, that's it doesn't get any better than that. I'm happy I did that just now. All right, so one more question about the Violet EQ before we move on. A few people have actually asked this, and that is, can you be a little more specific about what the fat button does?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I spoke about it while we were listening to the track, but yeah, for context, what this is doing, the fat button, is essentially giving us a little bump, a wide Q bump at the point of the Q frequency. So if I've got this set to 90 and I hit fat, 90 hertz is going to be boosted irrespective of what this is doing. So I could have that at 0, engage fat, and I'm going to get a little bit of a boost at 90 hertz, or 70, or 50, or 30.
Nice.
So it's just the idea being we might need to be trimming some low end, but if we add the fat button, we get a bump before the drop, Pultec style, obviously a non-SSL branded term, but yeah, that's the idea, that you get a little bit of a push before the drop off, just to sort of accentuate that frequency at the Q point.
Nice. All right, so let's move on to the next one, Luke. But if you can remember where the plugin is and pull the next one up in that same position, because I got it quite zoomed in, and I mean, it's perfect. Nicely done.
I don't know how I managed that, but we did it.
Well done.
Cool. So, in a similar fashion, we've got a similar setup to the vintage drive. The high frequency compressor here is what it says on the tin. It is a compressor for the high frequencies. So it's not full band. It's based on, again, the hardware of the Fusion. And we've got, obviously, our inputs, our outputs, our bypass in and out, and obviously the other controls that are the same throughout. But here we've got our threshold, crossover, and mix controls. Threshold is going to be the threshold, whether that's plus or minus 10 dB at the point of the crossover. The crossover being between 3K and 20K. Now what we're going to be using this for is to add a little bit of high frequency roll off. The idea is similar to that of driving into tape. We want that nice smooth sheen at the top end to sort of battle some of the brittle artifacts that we might have in our mix. Great on the mix bus just for smoothing that out. Great in places like hi-hats, overheads. My drum mix I'm going to play you in a little while. It's just going to be able to tame all of that information. And then the auto gain here is, if we're heavily compressing on the top end and we are smoothing out anything sharp in that region, the auto gain will then balance the mix to bring back the brightness that we're bringing out without the sharpness. So what I'll do is I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to play the track again without the high frequency compressor, turn it on, and I'm going to play with some settings, and then we'll discuss it in a minute. So, right, let's go. See the meter here. This is the reduction happening in real time. Crossover, I can find those frequencies I want to affect. Now using the auto gain, I can bring that brightness back in. Then using the wet and dry just to find that nice balance. Yeah, so a really, really great tool just for giving that analog tape saturation control over the top end, that natural compression that we'll revere from old school tape mixes. That's what the high frequency compressor is designed to do, but with extra controls compared to the hardware unit with the auto gain feature that we can then smooth the top end, then bring the brilliance and the brightness back into the mix.
Yeah, I mean that auto gain feature really sells it there. I mean, that was really cool.
Yeah.
When you engage that, it definitely gets a lot brighter. So you were focusing in on essentially that snare or rim there, and that's what you were taming surgically, and then I guess that would still going to bring down the level of other high frequency content, and that's what the audio gain is going to say, allow everything. That's like a gate.
Yeah, so it's essentially anything above the crossover point that is beyond that threshold that we've set up is going to be compressed. Without the auto gain, we're literally just going to be limiting that that clap that was coming through that we can see on these peaks that was really, really pushing through. That has obviously been tamed, and everything above it. So finding that crossover point that we might be taking too much out of the cymbals, but we want to get that crack of that snare or clap out, and then balancing it with the mix to find that balance, and then adding the auto gain then brings that level back up. Even though we smoothed out that crack of the snare that was really loud, we're regaining that balance of the hi-hat. So it's a combination of those three controls there, along with the auto gain. I don't know what's going on with that. Oh no.
What's happened?
I think my...
So I think there's some technical issues happening at the moment. I'm just going to tell you a joke. So no, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to tell you a joke. But thanks for tuning in. We're here with SSL. Luke Aziz is showing us around the Fusion plugin bundle. And we're going to be giving a few lucky people watching the stream a copy of that entire bundle. That's 5 plugins from the world-renowned SSL. To be entered to win, all you need to do is be active in the chat, asking your questions. If you have any questions for Luke, go ahead and @ Plugin Boutique. And it's not game over. We're going to get it rebooted up. You just got to deal with me for a second. Be the way, we're going to be doing an extra special Black Friday stream. I'm going to be doing one solo, giving away some plugins, hanging out. I'll probably be producing some music. And I'd love for you to stop by, hang out, and chill out with me for Black Friday if you're not going to be out taking part. Whatever it is people do on Black Friday. I don't go out. It scares me, to be honest. And I'm just waiting here. I don't believe there is a limiter plugin, Syndicate D&B. Luke, can you hear me? Give me a nod if you can hear me. Okay, we're here waiting. Don't worry about it. Relax. This is the nature of the beast. Tuning in from Germany. Obi, welcome. By the way, all of the plugins that we are showcasing here on the stream tonight are currently 85% off, which is crazy. It's an incredible deal. If you like the quality of SSL and you like what you hear here today, you should probably look into copping a few of those, if not the entire bundle. Of course, if you're not the winner of today's stream, but links are everywhere in the description, in the chat, if you want to check it out. George Bellos is wondering if we have an offer for the entire bundle. I don't think the bundle will be more than 85% off the individual plugins. I could be wrong. Killian, please do check that out for George. Space is what I appreciate that. That's nice of you to say. What kind of music does Joshua produce, I wonder? Timothy, come by Black Friday and you'll see. But any video you've ever seen me in, more or less, has been music that I've made. So I make all sorts of genres. I'm not a one genre person.
Josh, can you hear me okay?
We are getting back into it with Luke. Look,
sorry,
I got
guys. I have no idea what happened there. Yeah, well.
Are you back up and running with
beast.
the DAW and everything?
Yes, I am. Yeah, so you should be able to see that, hopefully.
All right, let me flip back over. All right, I do see your DAW. I can hear
Excellent.
you.
Oh, yeah, sorry, guys. I mean, apologies. You can test these things all day long, and then as it happens, it goes. I don't know what to say. Anyway.
All right, before you
here.
continue on with the compressor, can you move the UI up just a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little bit more. My OCD, it's got to be right there. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. Cool. So obviously, yeah. I know we had some questions. I was just about to answer some questions on this, so maybe we just jump straight into that.
Sure. Kobe's wondering if higher input gain adds saturation. So can you really push the input to get saturation and color?
Not with the high frequency compressor. It's not adding any saturation at this point. It's not designed to. So it's a linear compressor with the idea that we're going to be bringing down those frequencies. So you can use the input trim to gain stage that threshold. Maybe the threshold at -10 isn't quite low enough, so if you need then to push the input trim, balance it again with the output trim. But we're not using this for a saturation or a tone. We're using this to control the top end and then find the balance of that sort of roll off. Then we can add saturation again with Vintage Drive or X-Saturator or your saturator of choice.
Nice. And Shush is wondering, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce X-U-S-H, Shush. Can you modify the attack and release time? And I will add on to that. If you can't, is it an automatic or a static value just input in there?
Okay, so it is. You can't change the attack and release times. It's to my knowledge, and please don't quote me on this, just because I don't want to be wrong. But
that never happens on the internet, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's variable dependent on what we've got going in. So the attack and release is going to be dependent on the transient,
nice.
And the threshold. So whatever the hardware does that I haven't got the manual for in front of me, that's what the software's doing. So for more information on that, check out the Fusion manual and the Fusion plugin manual that are both on solidstatelogic.com. And I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but that's a great question. I think you should probably get a boost for that one towards winning one.
Killian, mark that down. Shush will be a name that we will add into the random pool later in the stream. Next question from Richie. Is there a low frequency compressor as well, or is there just the high frequency?
Just the high frequency compressor on this. I'm sure a lot of you know that there is a full band compressor in the actual hardware unit as a secret compressor. There's a few secret button codes you have to do to unlock it. In the plugin, this is just the high frequency compressor. But if you do want to mimic the hardware, we do have the Listen Mic compressor as a plugin you can also buy. But in this, it is just the high frequency.
Understood. Let's keep it rocking. What do we got up next?
Oh, so this next one, we've got Stereo Imager, and this is my favorite out of all five. I think this tool is amazing. I use it all the time, both in the hardware and in software. Now, what we've got here is a stereo imager is based around the mid-side technique. Now, what we've got here is controls of the side signal, with the idea that we're going to make the image wider or narrower if we choose to. We've got 3 main controls beyond the rest of them. So obviously we've still got our input and output trims, our bypass, and our solo side. I'll turn this on so you can see it. This is the vector graph, and this is showing our phase correlation between left and right. In these 2 segments here, in these 45-degree segments, these are phase coherent elements in the left and right sphere. Any information we see in these 2 segments are out of phase, but they're going to be working on something we call the shuffle technique. And this was produced by EMI and is known as a way to naturalize bass management in the low end in the side signal. It's to give a natural ambience to recordings in a stereo preset. So, I'm sure that has gone over most people's heads. It's gone over my head so many times when I've been learning about it. But what we've got here is the space and shuffle work together. Space is a plus or minus 12 dB knob. So we're adding 12 dB or reducing 12 dB of signal in the sides. So where we've got our mid and side, the side is only being affected by this control. Now, most people would consider removing bass from the side signal is the way to retain coherency in the phase in a mix, but we can get some really nice weight and balance and extra dimension to our mix by adding bass using the shuffle technique. Now this comes over with here, the shuffle. This is the cue point to where the plus or minus space control is happening. So I've got this set at 180 Hertz. I, by this control, would be adding 4 dB of bass under 180 Hertz to the side signal. Now what that does isn't just add bass, but the way bass is heard by us as human beings, we can't locate bass as easily as we can high frequencies. We don't get that lasering that we get with the upper frequencies. And what that means in reality is bass that might be coming out of the left signal will be heard mostly by the right ear and vice versa. So what this shuffle technique does is takes that bass frequency that is inherently within our side channels and moves them between left and right balance of our output, thus giving us more dimension to the low end without just adding bass. If I was to use a linear EQ and added bass to the side signal, I'm just adding more of what is there, whereas the shuffle technique recombines the left and right signal in this low end at the shuffle point to give the impression there's more depth to the bass.
Nice.
The width control then reduces or adds the side signal to the mix. So adding width by adding more side signal will give us a sense of width, essentially a more sort of stereo width to a mix. That's a lot of chat. That is a lot of chat.
Look, let's be honest. The Shuffle Point, great name for a track. Great name for a band, maybe. I like the Shuffle Point. Something about that has resonated with me. Oh, resonated.
I want to see it on a T-shirt from you now.
Dude, I'm just constantly. I'm telling you, T-shirts coming soon.
Right, guys. So I'm going to turn this off. We're going to have a listen to this track, and then I'm going to start messing around with this, and then I'm looking forward to loads of questions. Right, let's go. I mean, come on. I mean, that's the winner, isn't it?
Yeah, it's night and day, really. Could hear it a lot, especially it's really pushing things out into the side. I was wondering if you could reduce the width, though, to 0.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
really play with the shuffle so we can really get focus in on what that is.
Yeah, for sure.
What about if you run it over the drop with the bass and everything? You
Yeah.
think it would be more pronounced there?
Here we go. So the way I've got the architecture of the mix happening, the main bass line isn't feeding any input to the side signals 'cause it's completely mono. But everything in the organ tracks and the extra synth lines, all of that bass in stereo is being shuffled from left to right, opposite or around where it is in the mix balance. Yeah, I mean, you tell me, what do you think?
I mean, I think I want to get my hands on it is what I think.
I use this. I mean, a little goes a long way. I think these are quite extreme settings, but obviously I want to make sure you guys hear the difference. I love this on the master bus. I'll always use it both in hardware and in software, like I said. But it is great for stuff like backing vocals or summed send groups for effects. So if you want to move the reverb away from a vocal, you've got loads of techniques with side chaining you could use to duck reverb or move it out the way. But if you don't want to go to that hassle, and sometimes that can feel really artificial, just moving a reverb into the sides using shuffle and not cutting the bass but really emphasizing that low end can really add a glow to a vocal or a backing vocal, and add an extra level of depth and space, obviously, all the buzzwords, but that's what it's there for, and it does it very effectively.
Nice. Few people are wondering maybe you can re-explain what the difference is between space and width are by way of the parameters.
Yeah, so width control is essentially a volume control for the side signal. So as stereo information comes into the plugin, we are determining it whether it's mid or side. Now, for those that might be unsure of the idea of mid-side is anything that is phase coherent that has exactly the same information left and right, so essentially mono, is in the mid section of that output, and the sides is any differing phase cohesion material. So when there is material that has no corresponding match signal left and right, and the width control is boosting that side signal.
Understood.
The space yeah, glad you're with me. The space control is then controlling the amount of bass that we are adding or subtracting to that width, that side signal. So using the space control, I've added 8 dB of low end to that side signal, and that is again only affecting signal with a zero sum mid frequency information, so it's only affecting the sides. There's loads more I could talk about MS, but it's probably for another day and I don't want to bore you. But that's what the space control is doing, is essentially adding or removing bass at the shuffle point frequency within the side signal, which is then controlled by the overall volume of the width control.
Nice. João and Kobe, let us know if that was a robust enough answer. I think it was. Well done. We got actually a few people wondering the same question here. Mr. Dirty Harry and Little Studios Online is wondering if you're ever going to release a plugin that is the combination of all of these, like in a rack
It has been requested. I know there's a want for it. It's nothing I can divulge now. I can't say yes or no. It's something that is on our mind to do a complete control. But given that even if all of these were added together in one plugin, it's the same processing, so you're not getting anything different apart from you're obviously reclaiming a few plugin slots. With this, we have the ability to put any of these elements anywhere, or we can reorder them. So maybe I want to add my Violet EQ post stereo image or something like that. It gives me the flexibility to move these things around, and I'm not tied to the architecture of the hardware. But I completely appreciate there is a want for it. There are ways to do that. If you have a quick look on YouTube, there's a wicked Sean Devine video where he's using the Fusion plugins in a stackable way from another plugin supplier. So he's embedding all of the SSL plugins into that plugin to use as one plugin. There are ways around it. So if you are really fixed for plugin instances, go and have a look out for that. But otherwise, I think you're all good with the 5 in a row.
Well, that actually brings me to the next question, which I saw, which I think is a very good one, from Saul Mulgrave. And they're wondering, in your opinion, what, if any, is the order of these plugins in a general signal chain?
So the traditional format, which mirrors the hardware, would be, as I've set them up here, vintage drive, Violet EQ, high frequency compressor, stereo image, and then ending on our transformer plugin. That's the quintessential hardware representation of these. But like I said, you could move these around in any order you feel you need to, and it always comes down to being context dependent.
Love that.
I might find that I need to tame the top end before I start to drive it, otherwise I'm driving too much top end. So that'd be a great case of using the high frequency compressor before the vintage drive, or something along those lines.
And the final question, moving on to that last plugin there from C. Christensen, they're saying if they have the Fusion hardware already, should they grab the VSTs? And essentially that's the question of what are the differences between the two. I know you've touched on a few things going through each one of the plugins, but if you can give us sort of, a bird's eye view of what is extra maybe in the plugins that isn't on the hardware and vice versa.
I mean, first off, well done for picking up a hardware rack Fusion. I've got one as well. I love it. It's get used on near enough every mix I do. But like I said, sometimes I need some of these tools elsewhere in my mix. I use that high frequency compressor everywhere. Vocals, drum buses, hi-hats, anything that's just spitting too much at me. The Violet EQ is great for just tone shaping bass lines, so I'll just grab that. Or if I need a little bit of saturation, the vintage drive on its own, I'll just grab that elsewhere. With the hardware, there is the fixed architecture, so that is obviously the benefit of the plugin is being able to change those around. We've also got, like I said, other controls. So just on the stereo image alone, we've got the shuffle control, which is moving that space cue point, where on the hardware it's a fixed point where we are either boosting or cutting the bass in the space. Whereas obviously here we've got a little bit more control about how we're doing that. Same with the high frequency compressor. We've got the auto gain feature here, so I've smoothed off that top end, but I can add back that brightness that we've shaved off, and we've got the air band that we're pushing through with Violet EQ that we're then not losing by the high frequency compressor, so I can reinstigate that. And same with these. I mean, I've not got any mix control on the vintage drive on the hardware, but I've got it here so I can find that saturation balance exactly where I need it, and the auto gain as well. So yeah, so there are extra controls in all of these plugins that do mean that they are infinitely useful elsewhere in the mix. And if you've got a Fusion and you want to stick that on your master bus, wicked. Use these elsewhere and they'll find some synergy between them, I'm sure.
Nice one. Let's just move on to that next and final plugin.
The final plugin. So this is the transformer plugin, and it is simply modeling the transformer that is in the Fusion hardware. At the end of the chain, there's a massive old transformer on the back end that is just going to give us that lovely analog saturation in a different way than the drive control. Now, on the hardware, it's literally an on and an off button. It does that. You either have it on or you have it off. But in the plugin, as you can see, we've got so many extra controls. So the shine control here is giving us a saturation at the top end of our frequency band. And as we'll do an audio demo in a second, as I drive that shine control up, I can either minimize it and bring down that top end if we're a little bit too bright, or I can maximize it and really drive that. And then the same, I can then balance a lot of shine against a minimum amount of it, or I can really go nuts and just go 200% shine and just blow everyone's ears out with high frequency. We've then got the mix control, which is just going to find our balance. So we could obviously do something crazy, then bring it back and do a little bit of parallel transformer saturation. And then we've got the LF. Now, the LF extend, the low frequency extender, naturally, when we use transformers in the real world, in hardware, you get a little bit of a bump in the low mids, but you also lose a little bit of bass, and that's just the nature of the physics of using transformers. So we can mimic all of the saturation tone that we're getting from the transform by using this, but reinstigate the low end that we would have potentially lost if we were using hardware. So it just reinstigates that phase balance in the low, super low frequencies and gives us that bass back. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it isn't. It definitely comes down to a contextual thing there as well.
Love it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's have a listen, right. So we're going to, again, start with it off and then come back with it on. Listen to the low end, listen to the kick. Yeah, so there you have it. That's the transformer in action.
Absolutely phenomenal. And that wraps up the Fusion bundle, right?
Yeah, so that's all 5 of the plugins. Again, like I said, all on sale right at the moment, so no excuses not to grab all 5 and get this sort of mix happening on your mix bus. But yeah, like I said, there's loads of tone controls with the transformer beyond the hardware. As you could hear, I was sort of really pushing that top end with the shine control, but then balancing it back with the amount and the mix. So there's loads of options of saturation that we can sort of add by the transformer. And going back to questions earlier, driving the input is going to change the saturation. Obviously, it's gain dependent how this comes in. Obviously, I would advise don't clip the input bus, but I mean, I'm no one to tell you not to. But finding a nice balance in the input and then balancing that amount and shine is really going to go a long way in getting the color into that track that is just missing if you don't. And that really rounds off the Fusion package really nicely.
Someone once told me, be brave.
Yeah. So. That's a wise man.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, let's answer some questions on the transformer, but then I'm then going to play this track where I'll take all of them out and all of them back in. You can hear the difference of all 5 and the power that has on the mix bus. But first, if anyone's got any transformer questions, let's wrap that up now.
I'm lacking transformer questions. I think it was pretty straightforward.
It speaks for itself.
Yeah, it really does. I mean,
excellent.
You know my feelings on saturation, so
yeah,
the width plugin was great, but this one might be my fave of the 5.
Ah, excellent. Cool. Well, right. Let's drop in. I'm gonna just drop us into the back end of this track, some bass, and I'm gonna turn them all off, turn them all on again, and you'll be able to hear what we're doing. Right. So, actually, I'm gonna leave them on, play it out, and then turn them off because I think that's gonna give the impact. Yes, that's the power of all 5 of those on my mix bus.
Night and day. I also like those keys that came out of nowhere there at the tail end of that track. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take ownership of this. I've done the mix, but yeah, my friend Levan, house producer out of Berlin, amazing guy, was very kind enough to give me the stems for this, so I've been having a play for this week. So yeah, go check him out as well.
What? How do you spell that? Just so someone was actually just asking.
Lavan.
And that would just be like Spotify, the normal places?
Yeah, Spotify, Bandcamp. Yeah, if you're into your deep house, he's definitely one to watch.
Nice. Well, check this out, Luke. We're going to give away a few copies of
Awesome.
the bundles. And we don't sell the bundles, but we're going to give away the bundles to a few lucky people right now. This is your last opportunity to be involved with that random giveaway. All you need to do is be active in the chat. We're going to give it about another 30, 60 seconds. So chat something. Now's the time if you want to win. Luke, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming by and doing this.
Oh, no, thank you very much for having me. This has been awesome. I've enjoyed it. I've loved chatting to you guys. I love talking gear. Nerding out on this stuff I'm very fortunate. It's my job, but I mean, I'd be doing it anyway. Don't tell SSL that. They won't pay me. But I'd be sitting here chatting all of this regardless. So I've had a wicked time. Thank you very much. And I hope you guys listening and watching have enjoyed it too. And I hope it's been useful for you.
Yeah, you could tell you like it and you're passionate about it, and you know you bring the knowledge behind it. So it's it's nice to have a guest like you on. I think the people watching would agree. They're going crazy in the chat right now.
Excellent.
We're just gonna give them a couple of seconds, and then we're gonna collect some names. And the way we do that, Luke, is I think we're gonna give away 4 bundles to 4 lucky people. And a 5th one's going to Shush because you're the first guest that's ever been like that person should be involved. So Shush, out of the gate, you're the 5th winner of today. Congratulations. I'm gonna just
I want you to go have a listen to that high frequency compressor and you work it out. You tell me.
Yeah. Someone else was wondering. You mentioned there is like a secret trick to something on the hardware unit. Can you share?
I can share. So we have a secret combination. Well, I think there's a game in the manual. There's a game, but if there's a button hold on the Fusion unit on the high frequency compressor, it feels like it's 10 minutes, but it's meant to be 5 seconds. Hold that down. Let me just Let me just look at my unit just to make sure I'm pressing the right button.
All right.
Yeah. So on the in button on the high frequency compressor. Oh God, you all just saw that, didn't you?
Yeah,
as well?
no, I think maybe you could. Yeah, I mean, it follows you down if you
Yeah.
want to show the unit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see
Technology,
There we go.
ladies and
Right.
gentlemen.
over here.
All right.
But on the high frequency compressor, there's a button that says in. Press that for way too long, longer than you think, and it will change color. And when you do that, it will change into a full band compressor.
Your mic is not near your mouth.
Oh no! Right, one sec. We're all gone wrong, haven't we? Should have moved. Right.
If only the mic would follow you around like the camera did.
Oh yeah.
There it
Trust
is.
an audio engineer to mess that up, right? Yeah. So hold down that button, the in button on the high frequency compressor for, I think it's about 5 seconds. It's probably a little bit longer. It will change color, and all that will do is take that from being a high frequency compressor to be a full band compressor. Same as the listen mics that are on the consoles. The famous Phil Collins Toms. That's the high frequency compressor. You've got that in your Fusion. Definitely check it out. It does some really cool stuff.
Love it. All right. Well, there's the. You heard it here first, folks. If you didn't know, the secret is out, and you heard it here on Plug Boutique YouTube dev stream. All right. So the way this works is I have 10 names of 10 wonderful people who have watched the stream tonight and been kind enough in the chat to ask good questions and just be positive people. As I said, we're going to give away 5 bundles. One has already been claimed by Shush. We've got 4 more to give away. So if you can give me your favorite numbers between 1 and 10, 4 of them, those will be our winners. And give me just 1 second to pull up a notepad here so I can have this here.
Okay, so you want 4 numbers from me, yeah?
4 numbers between 1 and 10, excluding 6.
Okay, so winner number 1 will be number 1.
Nice.
Let's do number 1. Let's then do 9.
All right.
4. And then it's my birthday on Sunday, the 5th of November, so number 5 gets the win. That's the final one.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Nice. And number 5. Okay. I'm just going to get rid of these. Ba-doom, ba-doom, boom. All right. The winners
Amazing.
of all 5. Someone's at the door. The winners of all 5 Fusion plugins from SSL, courtesy of SSL. Thanks to SSL, Solid State Logic, for letting us do this and for allowing us allowing us to have your time today. The winners are The Game We Play, Seneca Music, Joe RN, and Freyskin. And of course, Shush is the 5th winner. Congratulations, everybody. You're today's winners. Yes, we got a clap sound effect happening. It's a way too long of a sound effect, but I like to use it anyway. Congratulations, everybody. Thanks to everybody else for tuning in. Come back. We're going to do lots of live streams this month. Lots of great guests coming up, but obviously we're here with Luke today. Luke, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I mean, yeah, I definitely, if you're still on the fence, you can grab the demos of these. There is temporary licenses that you can grab to try these out in your own mixes. But obviously you've got a week left of the bundle deal of getting these at $30 a piece, $29.99 or $28.99 in UK in pounds. So yeah, don't sit on it. Have a listen, but just grab them. You've heard them here. They sound ace. They're useful everywhere. I didn't really get a chance to even show you the drum bus or everywhere else, but maybe that's for you to go and have a play with and have a listen. So yeah, just grab them.
Phenomenal. All right, everybody, that's a winner today, by the way. Just reach out to support@pluginboutique.com with your name, a screenshot of you logged in here on YouTube with that account, obviously, and we will get you sorted. But as usual, I'm Joshua Casper. That's Luke Aziz for SSL. And this has been a dev stream, and we'll see you in the next one.
ragamuffin keep on rising to the top. Ragamuffin keeps traveling every way. International, what they call we international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place I with the one Jamal skinny. We are the general. We sit up on the rhythm and open the mic incredible. I'm be right palm rhythm and move with the rhythm. I sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel rock and follow me. Cool, you know you love her for your life. We jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it right. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we chop a mic, they call we give it a general. International, what they call we international. When me ride palm rhythm and I move with the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place I with the one Jamal skin.